There have been recent reports that exercising, and in particular working on your posture, may reduce the risk that you get a flu, for example, the COVID. As a practitioner, but also as a scientist, I'd like to bring you some elements to judge on this. I'm Olivier Girard. I'm an ergonomist, a posture therapist, the author of the Posture Manual, and the creator of the 10 Weeks Online Back Saving Program. Well, it all started with this article from the New York Times that spoke about Joseph Pilates and the way he discovered his discipline, say, during the Spanish flu. What he observed is that people who were doing physical exercises on an island were less sick than others. And you see here we get introduced to the different levels of evidence. There's case-based evidence, which is we do something with one individual and it works. Okay, so it has worked on one person. Then I would say we could talk about clinical evidence. We do an intervention protocol on a number of people and we observe that it works more or less good. That's, group level. And then there's scientific evidence, which is that we have randomized controlled trials. We take people really big groups of people with similar profiles in many ways, and we assign them randomly an intervention or no intervention, and we see what happens. Scientific evidence is seen by the public and by the scientists as the golden standard, which is something that I'd like to mitigate a bit. Why? Well, simply because, science, one, isn't as objective as we would like to believe. Two, science has limitations. Let me explain the two. Why is science not always that objective? Well, number one, because science needs fundings, and therefore science will be done on things that can be funded. Next to that, science needs to be published. Actually, university professors have individual goals, if they want to keep their professorship, to publish so many papers a year. And therefore, there's a kind of race for publication, and what you see is that what gets researched is what can get published, even if it's low quality. Who are the publishers? Private companies. So, we have to get out of this idea that scientific papers are here for the public good. No, they are private interests. I'm also an entrepreneur, I'm also a businessman, so I have nothing against private companies, but you have to be aware that these are not, say, charity organizations. The second limitation of science is that science has real difficulties measuring what's continuous and what's complex. What's continuous is your behavior 24/7, for example. It's extremely difficult for science to track what you do when you sleep, when you're at work, when you're in your hobbies. So usually lab studies, including in my field, in ergonomics, are what we do. And in a lab study, you're there for 30 minutes. Science finds it also very difficult to characterize continuous small postural deviations. For example, science will have real issues comparing people who have their head like this or who have their head like that, who have their shoulders like this or who have their shoulders like that. These are such minor deviations that, they are extremely difficult to study. So we don't see them at scientific level, but we, people on the field, see them. We are clinicians. One way or the other, what is the link between physical exercise, posture, and seasonal infections such as the flu? Well, the answer is probably to be found in the architecture of the lymphatic system. If you look at this picture, you will see that the lymphatic system is especially concentrated in your neck, under your armpit, and in your groin area. Let's look at the effect of, say, modern lives on these three areas. Well, the first two, armpit and neck, are put under compression by forward head posture, which goes together with round shoulder posture. Meaning that if there's compression on the lymphatic system will work less good than if it would be free. Check this video till the end. I will put the link to my video on forward head posture and you will understand why it's complex to resolve, but how we can do that with a good method. The third area of the lymphatic system, which is really crucial, is your groin area. And when we sit all day long, well, this area also is compressed. So you see, office workers typically who sit all day long and who use small screens and who are slumping with their forward head posture have a lymphatic system which is in the 3 key areas more compressed than it should, and the lymphatic system is what helps immunity. Therefore, office workers are actually straining their immune system just by the way they sit. And indeed, what we have observed in the clinical practice is that all my patients who have been through the full treatment and who have been able to preserve the results on the long term have repeatedly told me that they take less medicines when they have a flu and things, and that they are less sensitive to seasonal infections. Does it mean that if you work on your posture, you shouldn't care about the COVID anymore? Well, I don't think so, and I wouldn't formulate it like this. But what I mean clearly is that the public health system should give much more importance to this type of data than it currently does, because this is free medicine, and while although science has difficulties looking at the effectiveness of that, the advantages of working on this on the cost-benefit ratio or risk-benefit ratio on the 2 ratios is so enormous that it is a massive waste not to care about this topic. If you find it interesting to work on your posture as an investment for the health of your lymphatic system, and therefore possibly reducing the risk of getting seasonal infections or the severity of the seasonal infections that you get, well, just get in touch with me. My email address is below, and I will be answering your questions with great pleasure.